Hello everyone, and welcome back from the midwinter break. I'm posting a short instructional video, just an overview piece for the contents of this week in partial review, and then introducing the newest Dropbox of rhetorical analysis, summary, and outline. So on the welcome back line here in announcements, I have listed a couple of items here, and then we'll take you a quick review of the memoir feedback portion that's mentioned down below. Many of you have seen the postings now starting of the outline summaries, and some of you have the rough draft, and some of you are still waiting on a few of those, and my apologies. I've still been working out some of these access and submission issues, so hopefully now we don't have any problems in the upcoming items. And the Dropbox themselves, gone back through items and made sure they were reloaded. Does not seem to have been an issue from that end though, so hopefully the students with access issues did get those sorted out. But to make sure that it was nothing on this end of programming, that the rhetorical analysis summary outline Dropbox is entirely reloaded as it was at the start of the term, reset again this time with updated on the file. So hopefully there's no issue accessing those. There are a series of files in there, including the rubric, the summary outline template itself, a student example essay, and also the sample outline of charting devices. And I'll cover some of that in a moment here, but the majority of it is in the written instruction in that Dropbox. So here for first item, the peer review for memoirs has been canceled. Simply been too many issues on both platform and student submissions. So I'm going to take that down and keep it out of the schedule for this assignment. Perhaps put something back in with the rhetorical analysis, but as of right now I'm not going to, unless I see that I have no issues with people finding and posting and things on those. There's been too many issues to start. The second item on here, once all feedback of memoir summaries and outlines drafts have been posted, complete the final and submit it. I extended that Dropbox. It remains open an additional week. Some students have feedback posted already, but there have been a number of issues with different files, so I'm still posting some and extending that due date. Once the memoir drafts are submitted and reviewed, students will get a final feedback file and be allowed the rewrite of the memoir. So for those of you who have already been doing your best to keep up with those items, my apologies for any delay. However, after reviewing all files and addressing all submission and access issues, some students simply have not submitted those files at all, and the majority of them, as far as we can tell, were just student error things or access with some of those files. So hopefully those have all been sorted out, and the feedback that gets posted, you can review those and then take up through the 20th to submit. Now if you haven't submitted any files, you're in a different category. That still falls under late or missing work. So make sure you've reviewed that. The third item on here, all students proceed with rhetorical analysis summary outline. Get into that Dropbox and start reviewing those items. If you already have finished your memoir final draft and put that in there, that's fine. But if you're still one of the students waiting on the feedback there, bear with me in the next couple of days of getting those out, and then you can have up through the 20th to make those adjustments. I'm going to mention again what the feedback is on summary outline versus drafting. It'll be the same thing with rhetorical analysis, though those feedback files for summary analysis on rhetorical should be back much sooner than these ones were. So here on the memoir feedback, make sure that you've reviewed this that I posted last week. I believe everything's been sorted out on these submissions. It's not going to be by Monday for, I think, your section for some of you in here. So just bear with me on that a couple more days. On the memoir feedback itself, though, for those of you who already had the summary outline posted, the summary outline I addressed mainly the memoir's content, structure, and layout. The main issues there, really, there weren't a lot. The majority of students had very good stories, and the memoir and layout content things were really good, and there were just some minor adjustments. For some of you, there seemed to have been some confusion. You deleted some items, or you didn't have topic sentences, or you didn't seem to really understand what the general to specific intro was. And then I had a couple of students that submitted things that weren't exactly outlines. It looked like you made something of your own design or a partial draft. Those are things that I addressed on there. And then structural content was the primary. Some of you, I made some suggestions about adjusting where the complication is, but the majority of them were already good, and most of it was just some of the wording things that I suggested. Now on the draft, with those, what I'm addressing primarily there is the MLA formatting the paper as well as the sentence level and wording issues. So this is one of the areas where we're talking about the ASC tutoring as well. Remember, I give extra credit for those sessions, and students have 2 sessions per week that are included in tuition. So if you need more regular feedback on some of these items at any time, make sure you're submitting those through the ASC process and getting a feedback file from them on some of those. And some of you will actually have tutoring sessions with a tutor either in person or through the online format. The main thing there is to make sure that you're addressing the primaries that are of your concern at the sentence level with those, and they can be very helpful in that regard. I will be addressing that on the rough draft, and then some students need to address issues from both 1 and 2 categories here, but many students only have real issues in 1, and that was some of you where I made some suggestions on either wording of some of the main components or adjustment of complication or the general to specific intro. This is the reminder here about the ASC, this Academic Support Center, in the nav bar above. So that would be up here under your student services. You can ignore which number is listed here. I have a couple of sections on the same scale right now for this week, 2 of you to be exact. So over here on the Dropbox submissions, this one extended here, I left the FERPA and academic honesty forms in there open. There were a couple of you that were still submitting where you just didn't sign the form. It was typed in there. That's something that probably on the academic honesty form I could maybe accept those there, but I certainly can't for the FERPA because it's a federal regulation and I have to actually have a signature. Now on the rhetorical analysis summary and outline, make sure that you go into the Dropbox, review all the components here, and review the commercial that's used for this example. If you have not done the reading of this assignment portion, the rhetorical analysis, one of the primary reasons that I want you moving forward with this and not delaying is that most of you are already through this reading that was scheduled prior, so you have this rhetorical analysis terminology down. If you have not, make sure you've read this chapter and you understand what we're talking about, the content and context of rhetorical analysis. You're looking for analysis of primary devices that are used in your ad that you select. So each student, after reviewing this and the assignment components down here at the bottom, the summary and outlining template, the rubric itself for the assignment, the writing the paper, the student example, and then this one of charting devices using this ad piece up here as an example. On the summary outline, make sure that you remember to give me a summary of the piece and the details that are listed there, and make sure that your outline includes the general to specific intro. Make sure that you name your rhetorical devices in your thesis statement. You remove the examples that are there and you put your thesis statement in place of the one that was there. And then in the body paragraphs themselves, each body paragraph that you do have, some of you will have 2, some will have 3, some will have 4. It will depend on how many devices you determine are in that commercial. In each one of those bodies, you're analyzing a different rhetorical device. So if you decide that it's things like imagery or the musical score, or there's a celebrity figure that's presenting the ad, whatever it is that's being advertised there to make their argument to their intended audience. You might have comedy that's used as a rhetorical device, humor, things along those lines. Now, if these things that I'm describing don't make sense to you yet, then you more than likely haven't read the chapter, so make sure that you do. This terminology is described in that chapter, and it's also described in some of this breakdown in the Dropbox as well as the assignment components. Make sure that you remember that what you're doing is analyzing individual devices and explaining their rhetorical appeals. So a device might be something like imagery, it might be something like humor, it might be something like a celebrity figure or music, or all of those things listed. You may again have 2, 3, or 4 body paragraphs. That's going to depend on the commercial you pick. But the main thing is to remember that when you're talking about their appeals, that is when your chapter is referring to things like logos, ethos, and pathos. A rhetorical device makes an appeal to its intended audience, and that appeal is either made via logos, with a logical appeal, with facts, expert opinions. Your devices can also include captions. You could say captions are used as a device to deliver logical information, facts, and statistics, which makes a logical appeal to the viewer, right? That would be a caption as a device, and the rhetorical appeal would be logical. You also have pathos and ethos, pathos being emotional appeals made by devices. So you may have a series of images like we do in this piece, or some of you see ASPCA ads, and they have a bunch of images of dogs that they want you to adopt, and those have emotional appeals for you as the viewer. You might also have an ethos appeal, and that's where it's referring to having a device like having a celebrity figure who you might just like their personality, so you'll listen to them. Or it might have a rhetorical device of a doctor presenting factual information about some topic that the ad is promoting, in which case that rhetorical device of a doctor would be using both logical appeal to the viewer, and it would also be using an ethos or the reputational appeal of the doctor as the expert. Okay, so remember those things, and if those are confusing to you through this description, make sure you've read the chapter before you start this component piece. All right, so that's it for this week that we begin this portion here. And again, guys, my apologies for any delay on feedback on these. I'm working as quickly as I can on them, but there have been a lot of fires to put out since the start of term, dealing with different things with different students, primarily these 2 sections. So I look forward to seeing the other pieces, and when my feedback is posted up there, I look forward to seeing the revised versions when you work into the final draft. And remember, once I get finals, I will then do a feedback file of those as well, and students will have a couple of weeks to do any revisions they want on those. All right, look forward to seeing the work. Hope you're all well.